What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
and we're new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Thinking, you know, why do we bash Americans? And I don't mean we as in me and everyone else. And I don't just mean this, you know, politically. There seems to be a tendency toward bashing Americans in general. Now, before I do continue, I should reiterate that, of course, this isn't all British people bashing all Americans all the time, but there is still, nonetheless, this tendency that happens there. And you wouldn't expect a restaurant to write this about other nations or other nationals from around the world, but somehow it's fair game with Americans, and that is something that I've never understood. Of course, now I understand it even less, having lived in America for 11 years and married to an American who would not take kindly to me saying such a thing. So, you know, I just wanted to give some thought as to why we think it is fair game. In order to do so, we have to look historically at the relationship, the now apparently special relationship between Britain and America. And so, you know, I think anti-American sentiment, if you want to call it that, among my British compatriots has existed for centuries. I mean, you could go back to the early colonization of what is now the United States. Even after that, take for example Samuel Johnson, the inventor of the original English dictionary in Britain. He was the sort of the precursor, I suppose, to Noah Webster in that sense. And you know, he had quite a strong anti-American sentiment to him. He's the very man, in fact, that said, "I am willing to love all mankind except an American," and that's not all he said. I mean, that's not where it stopped. He also said, by his own choice, this was of somebody who would move to the continent of North America, or just the United States in general. By his own choice, he has left a country where he had a vote and little property for another where he has great property but no vote. And in many ways, that's sort of in line with King George III's idea that as a political entity, America had no hope, that it would go nowhere. And of course, then it did. It became independent from the British. You could almost argue that that may have led to resentment, at least.
That's what I be feeling like. I feel like, you know, the United States was supposed to be England's baby. The baby said, "I don't want nothing to do with you.
Crazy.
I am my own human."
Yeah.
I don't know why I humanized it so much, but that's why I be feeling like there's this banter.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel you.
This strife.
At that very time, I think if you were to talk to British people today, they may not even cite 1776 as a reason for their resentment against Americans, should they have that resentment. Oh. And that's quite an interesting point, right? So I'm not sure that all prejudice toward Americans today is even tied to history. In fact, to its detriment, it often ignores it. In the case of language, actually, quite often, as I've pointed out before, we ignore sort of the historical patterns behind language and how Americanisms came about from Britishisms. You know, I've talked before about the word soccer having been coined actually in England, if you want to talk about lexicon. The same is true of certain spellings of words. Let's look at aluminum. We say and write aluminium back in the UK, and you say aluminum here. Well, aluminum was previously in use in the UK and was debated back and forth between members of the science circle there as to which one we should.
Y'all want to call it fall paper? Just keep it simple.
Well, maybe they was talking about just the element.
You think? All right.
With. And then similarly, when we're talking about pronunciation, a lot of Americans have a tendency to drop the H on herb, whereas the British tend to keep it, but that was not always the case. We started out by dropping the H on herb because of the French tendency to do so, just as we do with the words honour and hour and things of that ilk. But we stopped doing that just because it was becoming quite a class issue. If you were doing that in the UK, you were seen as unintelligent at one point. That memo never got spread over here in the United States. So they dropped it, and we ignore that fact when we criticise Americans from a linguistic point of view, and that's not where it ends. You could talk about sort of American stereotypes that have emerged. Americans are loud, we've talked about this before, but of course that is quite specific to certain things. And, you know, just as it would be in reverse if we were to sort of stereotype my fellow countrymen for having bad teeth because of the depiction in Austin Powers, for example, not necessarily true of all British people. we
good
do
movie.
guide a lot of our things based on stereotypes. I'm talking now, of course, about the present day, having talked about the 18th century. But in between that, the relationship between the United States, or at least the political relationship between the United States and Great Britain, has changed, and specifically in and around World War II, when we sort of forged the aforementioned special relationship. You could still find quotes such as this, which was actually not by Winston Churchill. It's often said that Winston Churchill said it. He did not. There's no evidence for it. But the quote came out of somewhere. Somebody invented it. And so I think it's kind of a never-ending thing. But the big question is, why? Why do we bash Americans? We don't do this to people from other predominantly English-speaking countries like Australia or Canada. So we have to look at a couple of things. Firstly, America is a big dog in the world. It's the biggest dog, perhaps, in the world. Has been since World War II. We're very familiar with that idea. So in the present day, if we're ignoring history, as some are wont to do, are we simply looking at how America is a big dog and applying envy to that? Let's not forget, Britain also thinks of itself as sort of the greatest country in the world. It just uses different terminology. You know, it's very proud of what it's achieved, and rightfully so. I mean, we gave a lot to the world of music. We've given a lot to the world of technology, to the world of sport, etc., etc. And so when another country comes along and does all these things sort of bigger and grander and is itself extremely proud of its efforts, perhaps we look at that with a tinge of envy. I'd be lying if I said we didn't. And at the same time, there is respect. I think there is respect back in England for the United States. It's a weird sort of back and forth, a Jekyll and Hyde personality that we have toward America. But some other things, you know, through television and through media, we are granted, or rather given, an idea of what Americans are
That's
like.
where it probably
We'll
come
more
from,
than
the
occasionally
TVs.
see news stories like this one. So when we see news reports like this, which I should say are very isolated but nonetheless very eye-catching and loud news reports, we have this tendency to assume, I think, through the frequency of it, that all Americans are like this, when in fact, through my own experience, I've found it to be not the case at all. You know, I think most Americans that I interact with, while just like everyone else in the world may have their own neuroses that are unique to themselves and things of that nature, mostly aren't committing very bizarre crimes in Florida. I think that, you know, partly when we want to talk about British attitudes toward America, you have to remember that Britain just likes to moan. I mean, we do. We're a nation of moaners. I'm not a nation, but I am a moaner by nature because of, I think, my upbringing. But I tend to reserve that for things like the weather or the food that I'm about to eat tonight. It's
Picking your
not
battles.
usually about a group of people from a nation, because let's remember that America is such a diverse nation that how could you really pigeonhole everybody into the same category? It can't be done. To that extent, it is impossible, I think, to bash Americans. You could bash a particular American for something terrible that he or she did, but to do it to a whole nation of people is very short-sighted in my view. But don't feel too...
Yes, I agree with that.
I do too.
Because I know with the UK, we got a love-hate relationship. Because for some reason, the UK just couldn't get with us. But I think we have won y'all over in recent months. For some reason, I don't know what we've done differently.
Something was happening.
Something. Y'all liking this all of a sudden again. But I feel like when we talk about different topics, people would say, I know you ain't talking about no schools because y'all be, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That's the number one thing. That's something to brag on.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That's what he be talking about. We can say something positive and y'all can just kill it.
Yeah, like,
You be like, y'all school systems is like this. Or the uproars here. What about this time in history when y'all did this? It's like...
And we looking at y'all like, the Demouchets ain't do that.
Facts,
When the Demouchets speak on things, we speaking on what have affected us.
Yeah.
You know, our points of view. Our perspective.
Yeah, one man's problem shouldn't be, you know, the whole American people's problem. Like, we're not all doing the same thing.
Yeah, we're not. So when people bring up this school thing, you know, the bad thing, it's like, even the American people are like, y'all need to do something about this. Stop this. Okay, so, yeah.
Big facts.
That's an example.
Too bad about that, America, because we don't just reserve it for you. We do something very similar to the French, and for similar reasons as well, both linguistically based and also imperially based, historically speaking. So, you know, when I see a tweet like that I showed here at the beginning of the video, I almost wish I could encapsulate all of these thoughts into one video and reply to that tweet with said video. And now I can. I win. And so that is why we/they/the British don't slash the British. It's not the Revolutionary War. That's why the British bash Americans. Thanks for watching.
All right, y'all. Hey, make sure y'all check his channel out. Go show some love. You feel me?
Yes.
Yeah. There you have it.
All right, so y'all know we all about positivity over here, so I'm going to challenge you all to a question. How have the Demouchets changed your view of Americans?
Nah, that's a good way to go about it, babe. I like that question. Yeah, I like to see it in the comment section. So we look and make sure you guys put it in the comment section down below.
All right. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.